Levanevsky, таинственный летчик, все летит вдоль высоких широт, и на лентах терешек и точек не кончается дальний полет. Levanevsky, летящий сквозь время, человек нераскрытой судьбы. 75 лет назад в небе над Арктикой пропал экипаж самолета Н-209 во главе с героем Советского Союза Сигизмундом Ливаневским. Было много таинственных и разноречивых версий, но судьба Ливаневского до сих пор остается загадкой. Вернемся в 12 августа 1937 года.
Беспосадочный перелет Москва, Северный полюс, Америка. Отправляется экипаж известного полярного летчика, героя Советского Союза, товарища Ливаневского. Вслед за экипажем Чкалова и Громова, совершившими рекордные перелеты на одномоторных самолетах, экипаж Ливаневского доставит в Америку несколько тонн груза. Таким самолетам принадлежит огромное будущее в установлении регулярного грузопассажирского сообщения между континентами. На Щелковском аэродроме экипаж провожает герои Советского Союза Водопьянов, Байдуков, Беляков, трудящиеся столицы.
Член наземного экипажа Н-209 Борис Черток.
Это были действительно события, которые, так сказать, поднимали дух, я бы сказал, всего тогда нашего народа. Он гордился тем, вот какую технику мы создали, вот какая у нас замечательная авиация, вот какие у нас замечательные летчики-герои. Поэтому такого рода события, они, если хотите, как-то объединяют всю нацию гораздо больше, чем это способны сделать наши олигархи, которые пытаются объединить нацию методом покупки власти.
Ливаневскому и его товарищам, сталинским соколам, не нужно было покупать народную любовь. Их любили за смелость, за небывалые достижения. Смотрели на них как на идеал советского человека, подчинившего себе современную технику, покоряющую природу. Летчики были любимцами Сталина, а Ливаневский первым среди равных.
Впервые по сталинской трассе через Северный полюс из Москвы в Северную Америку летит большой советский транспортный самолет Н-209.
Полет начинался благополучно. Пошли радиограммы. ЯРЛ 19 часов 40 минут. Пересекли Волгу-матушку. Путевая скорость 205 км в час. Высота полета 820 метров. Слышу хорошо Москву на волне 32,8. Все в порядке. Самочувствие экипажа хорошее. Тревожные сообщения пошли на следующий день, 13 августа. В них голос судьбы. Крайний правый мотор выбыл из строя из-за неисправности маслосистемы. Высота 4600. Идем в сплошной облачности. Ждите. Радиостанция на мысе Шмидта приняла последнюю разборчивую весточку экипажа. Как меня слышите? РЛ, ждите. И связь оборвалась.
In Fairbanks, there were a mayor of the city, a few local residents, and 4 representatives of the Soviet Union waiting for Levanevsky to arrive. Mikhail Belyakov, the head of the Soviet Meteorological Service, Artan Vartanyan, a head of the Transport Department of Antwerp, Sava Smirnov, a radio engineer who installed the radar near Fairbanks to communicate with the crew, and Lev Khvat, a journalist of the main Soviet newspaper Pravda, who had brought a table of codes to read the messages from the plane. None of the Soviets spoke any English, neither the English crew knew a word in Russian. The emergency radiogram was received by Russian and American operators. The Soviet newspaper Pravda retold the content of the latest radiogram. At 2:32 p.m., the headquarters received an emergency radiogram from the aircraft N209. It said, "The far right engine has quit due to a problem with the oil system. Entering overcast skies, will attempt a landing, 3400 Levanevsky." By the way, these numbers, 3400, are still a mystery. No one knows what they actually mean. It was obvious that the Soviet government kept the disappearance of the plane in secret. They weren't ready to share the tragic news with the public. The head of the Soviet Meteorological Service, Mikhail Belyakov, with the American colleagues, created the first weather forecast for the Levanevsky's crew and then for the search crews. These became the beginning of the World Weather Watch. So the intense search began on August 14, 1937. First of all, in the morning, Vartanyan sent 3 aircrafts with experienced pilots on board. Then the #1 Alaskan polar pilot Joe Crosson, a chief pilot of Alaska Airways, flew to the north and reached Flexman Island and then returned to Fairbanks. Artak Vartanyan and Lev Khvat were on board with Crosson. The second plane that joined the search was a single-engine plane called Fairchild, which was commanded by the well-known Canadian pilot Robert Randall. Randall flew 250 miles to the northwest, but did notice anything unusual. On the next day, he traveled on his seaplane and landed on the Barter Island, which is 40 miles away from Barrow. There, he started interviewing local residents, Inuits. They said that they had heard a loud noise but didn't see a plane due to the cloudy weather. There is a small detail to the story. In 70s, Randall got 5 kids and all of them became pilots. Then there was a third plane commanded by Murray Stewart. Sava Smirnov was with him on the board of the plane, called also Fairchild. On August 14, 1937, Soviet Ambassador Umansky invited a polar explorer and the president of the Explorer Club, Viliamur Stephenson. Stephenson brought a famous Arctic explorer, Sir Hobart Wilkins, with him. They created another very risky plan. While the ocean wasn't covered with ice, they brought an amphibious aircraft which can land on water and on the ice in case of emergency. Wilkins and a group of 5 Canadian and American specialists left airports on August 25, 1937. Then they persuaded another member of the Explorer Club, Archibald, to sell them the newest Lockheed Electra. Wilkins flew more than 2,000 kilometers during nights in December 1937, and then in February and March 1938 he made 6 risky flights, but none of them brought any result. Then Mikhail Vodopyanov flew to the North Pole, and on his way back to the base he was running out of petrol. In February 1938, Yakov Mashkovsky made another attempt to find the plane N209, but unsuccessfully. In May 1938, the search was stopped, and on August 13, 1938, exactly one year later after the tragedy, the Soviet government issued a decree on the termination of the search, the establishment of pensions to the families of the crew, and the installation of a monument in honor of the crew.
В Москве на Поклонной горе в мемориальном зале славы был торжественно открыт бюст Ливаневского. В космическом центре имени Хруничева, бывший 22-й авиазавод, здесь был создан Н-209. В честь экипажа и самолета открыли этот монумент. Костанаев и Годовиков работали на заводе.
We have 3 witnesses, 3 Inuit hunters, which are believed to have seen the oil spill that was caused by the crash of N209. A year later, in the April of 1938, the story was told to the radio operator for the military Stanley Morgan of the Barrow City. It was a humble story with not so many information in it, but it was a foundation which led to other searches later on in the years. Important to mention that we have identified 2 of the 3 hunters that apparently saw the crash site through the binoculars. Their story also supported by one of the hunter's wife. The names of these two hunters are Roger Katatvik-Kashak and Foster Ungudruk Panihel. The wife was Foster's wife, and her name was Hazel K. Ajer. And this October, we are planning to narrow the search area for the next season. While in Alaska, we would like to learn more of three men who saw the incident in 1937, and Jack Smith, who witnessed oil shortly after. If possible, we would like to interview the relatives of friends or relatives of friends of these men that may have any remembrance or of this event. If we can find people who have any information of the Jones Island crash sighting in 1937, we would like to film the stories with their consent, of course.
Our Society of American Culture Studies conducts conferences each December, and one December a filmmaker, Yuri Salnikov, came to our conference with the story of search for a Russian pilot, Soviet pilot actually, and his team of the plane N-209. The story was heartbreaking because the plane, which flew from Moscow to New York in a transpolar flight in 1937, flew over the North Pole and then vanished and was never found, even after a very prolonged and thorough search by polar pilots, American and Canadian polar pilots in 1937. Still, that mystery of paramount importance, I would say, for even our times, as it was the first flight that was to connect our two countries through the route that was the shortest route. And now the shortest route comes through the hearts of many people, both sides of the ocean, and Yuri Salnikov connects all these hearts, I would say, with his persistency, with his, I would say, love for those people, because he knows a lot of their relatives here in Russia, and those relatives ask him to find the truth. What happened then in 1937, and whether they can come to the place which holds the remains of their parents and of their relatives. We have, I would say, we have now, as I'm connected with this project for almost 3 years now, and throughout these years I got to know, either by Skype interviews or by correspondence over email that we exchange all these years, that the American and Canadian partners of this project, of this team, are also eager to find this plane, and they have the expertise and enough to do that. For example, the Canadian participant, Bill Tuma, found already 13 planes buried under ice and or on the bottom of the lakes, and so the means exist, and now more than ever, because this place where the search is conducted is very difficult for search. Although it is shallow, only 10 feet or so, or 10 meters rather, or so. Still, it is Arctic Sea. It is summer ends very early. The plane vanished in August. It was already beginning the onset of winter, and each time when the expedition is organized, it takes a lot of time on logistics. And when it comes to the place, it is already late to search. But now maybe satellite imagery could help, maybe drones could help, which are needed for such purposes and not for military purposes more. And but they exist, and now I suppose we can use these means to finally find the remnants of this plane. At least engines should exist, because they weighed over 800 kilos, and so they couldn't be entirely dissolved by the ocean even after 80 years.
Why do you care for Levanevsky?
I care for the story because I can't imagine how brave these people were, and they decided to go that far to discover a new route, to join these two continents. And I think it's very important to get back to them, and by finding the remains of the plane.
During that time, any flight of this duration, because this era was long before space flights, and any flight of this duration were considered to be inspirational and magical. This crash of N209 evokes a big sense of mystery, because it happened in the hard-to-reach by conventional means places. I think the search effort is important not only for the aviation history, but also to commemorate the loss of N209 6 crew members. This is my opinion on this question.
Будет 13 августа 2017 года 80 лет. Это тот рубеж, который мы себе поставили, и мы должны добраться до истины. И я очень надеюсь на то, что наши коллеги в Америке, в Канаде, наши русские помощники и сподвижники, кто-то работает в архиве, кто-то ищет пленки вот из нашей группы, но мы все надеемся, как оптимисты, на какой-то результат. Или это будет отрицательный результат, и лопнет наша гипотеза, или это будет положительный результат, чему все мы будем рады и просто безумно счастливы.
В 20 веке не удалось разгадать тайну гибели самолета Levanevskого. И все-таки мы верим, что в 21 веке матушка Россия найдет своих погибших сыновей. Нью-Йорк Таймс. Мистер Levanevsky, верите ли вы в свою удачу на этот раз? Я считаю большой удачей, что нам доверили этот полет. И верю, что по этому пути будут летать. С нами или без нас.